Hey guys, Matthew here once again with a sneaky one more PoE 2 build. Probably before we move on to something like Project Diablo 2, something like that. I don't know. But we are testing the loot still, and then the new patch that's about to hit, or just then hit, and I'm going to test in a second, which has some pretty cool tech with like new strongbox stuff and better breaches. Overall, a good looking patch and stuff. But the character I've been playing and wanted to try out since the last time I played Incinerate is Incinerate Pathfinder. Now, if you watch my previous video on Incinerate as a chronomancer, I believe it was, a time wizard, it was just something that kind of slowed the whole world down, but also did its own thing with cast while channel moving like Incinerate. And I was a big fan of the skill. I did enjoy Incinerate a lot, but I was also wondering what would happen if we did a Pathfinder and then had much less movement speed penalty so that we could just zoom around the map laying down Incinerates without really slowing ourselves down at all. And the answer is this. It's pretty fucking good. I enjoyed it a lot. This is a character that's now just hit level 90. Didn't have to take too much time to figure out what's going on because for the most part I remember what I was doing with Incinerate, but I was experimenting with the passive tree and additional sources of damage, and I also wanted to incorporate Flame Blast into this one as a big source of extra ignite, which I did do. It's kind of forced because it's absolutely not necessary when you're just incinerating and doing enough damage with that, but when I swap in one of my other gems and have a Flame Blast level Light of Meaning Jewel, I think it's called, it's kind of a bit better to have Flame Blast as a secondary and just do a bit of extra punchy one-tap kind of damage. For the most part, like I said, not very necessary. It can be a very pure Incinerate build, but I wanted to make sure Flame Blast is getting some kind of love as well, and it does in some capacity here. It's kind of crazy. Like, if I actually went all out with an Incinerate gem that gave me another 3 levels, then I don't think Flame Blast would be able to come close to the damage that Incinerate currently does. It pretty much needs to have that extra crit factor, which I think I tested earlier this league as well. Either way, you can see the kind of ignite damage is actually pretty legit and definitely works. Picking up a Gloom Shrine also feels really good because just pops the entire screen basically, but Ignite is in a surprisingly decent state if you've got like the right gear and stuff. It's not super expensive gear, but it is gear that takes a bit of work to put together because you need like skill levels, gem levels, that sort of thing. And then Ignite actually seems pretty respectable. So people are memeing and clowning on Ignite, rightfully so to some extent, because it's not going to hit like the millions and billions of damage that some other things are doing, but it's more than adequate to take you through high-end maps and bosses and stuff. And this, for the most part, I think almost all these clips are on a level 18 or 19 gem, so I'm not even at level 20s, and no 6 links either. So there is still progress to be made, and my gear could always be a little better, but like I said, it's not going to be the easiest thing to put together if you're like SSF or something. We're talking something like 3 divines worth of gear, maybe, but there is room for improvement, of course. But that said, yeah, I'm surprised that Ignite does as well as it does, considering I am a Pathfinder, so I start in the wrong part of the passive tree. Got to do a lot of traveling, and that's its biggest problem. So we have to do a lot of traveling to get to the good damage nodes, the Ignite nodes and stuff. But the other kind of problem is that there really isn't that many nodes for us to even use and scale. We do our best. We pick up, fire damage, LE damage, ignite damage, that sort of stuff, but you do still kind of run out of good damage nodes, and it's just, up to whatever else you want to do with the build. So that's just if it's pure Incinerate. This boss fight here, it goes pretty quick, but then we try and set up Flame Blasts against certain bosses, and it takes a bit of work, some effort, and sometimes you get stunned out of it. Overall though, very satisfying playstyle, as you can see. With the Pathfinder tech, we have very little movement speed penalty, and I tried to go out of my way to stack about as much movement speed as I feasibly could without going overboard. I, didn't like travel everywhere on the tree to get just pure movement speed. I did as much as I could without being too impractical, basically. And we are a fast-moving character. It feels pretty good. It feels kind of closer to what you would want PoE 2 most characters or like baseline movement speed to be. You can zoom through maps pretty quick, and then our attack lets us kind of do good damage while doing all that moving. So it's a very nice, fun playstyle, and I can highly recommend it. It's maybe my favorite character of the PoE 2 so far. I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, let me just go ahead and show you how I build this character. So here's our character level, almost 91, Pathfinder, called It Burns When I Pee, F, because Pathfinder. And yep, Incinerate is the name of the game. Once again, wearing the Pandemonium outfit. Just looks really good, especially for fiery-based characters. But yes, Incinerate is what I wanted to play with. It's pretty mana heavy, I guess that's one thing I didn't really mention. So a lot of the build does kind of try and get around that with a bit of extra mana regen and stuff like that. But as you can see, it stacks a bunch of damage, ignite damage, and it's a weird one because it ignites as though dealing a certain amount of damage, but like hit-based stuff still works, but then just like pure dot stuff works. I don't know, it's a bit of a weird one, but it stacks fire exposure, so at maximum it gives you plenty of fire exposure, and even if you're just pure flame blast, it's a good idea to incinerate enemies to have the extra exposure from that. It also drops ignited ground, which I think is just like applying the current dot kind of thing, but as an ignite ground instead, not like doubling up, but just like its own thing, of the same thing. I don't know, whatever. I don't think it really matters either way. You are just creating ignited ground, and that helps some level of clear, because things like then run over it and die to it. It feels pretty comfy, but as you can see, my character runs pretty fast by PoE 2 standards. We have 50% movement speed, and then once you cast, it goes down a little bit, but that's because I don't have all of the movement penalty stuff on the tree. What we have is the Pathfinder node. That is the main reason I wanted to play this character, and then the 25 less over here, and I've also spec'd this 10 reduced movement speed penalty. We also have some nodes over here for 8 reduced movement penalty and 12 reduced movement penalty. I had that initially, and it did feel a little bit less slowed down, but it's not a really big deal, and it's kind of inefficient to go there, so I end up dropping it. But if you want all of them to maximum, then you grab that as well, and then you'll basically not be losing almost any movement speed whatsoever while casting with your current movement speed. But this is already fast enough, and it's pretty noticeably different that when you're doing stuff like this, just how important and powerful a defensive layer this type of mobility while doing your damage is, because on most bosses we just run circles around them and avoid lots of damage. It's pretty damn good. So basically, if you want to copy this type of character, you are looking at trying to get gem levels up, so +5 on a wand or +7 on a staff is pretty much where you want to be. Damages extra fire, stuff like that works, so the really expensive offhand Sacred Flame will work as well. But otherwise, you're just looking for spell damage, fire damage. A bit of cast speed does help, so you can ramp your stuff faster and also cast your Flame Blast faster. So that's why we have Solar Orb, so we can cast a Flame Blast on it. And it also winds up pretty fast if it's channeled onto a Solar Orb. But you are looking for +5, +2, and then +3 over here. And then all that together is pretty much as maximum as you can be for an Incinerate. Most of my character was on a level 18 gem. Only the past, hour of this character's playthrough was a level 19 gem. And then, of course, you can get it to a 20. And each one of these gem levels is going to be really kind of a big step up at this type of a stage, because it just gets bigger and bigger for damage-wise. So the last bit of min-max is going to be a pretty important one. If you can be getting there. So I'll get a level 20 gem, maybe even a 21, and we'll probably get another 30% more damage, and then even a 6th link is going to be a lot more too. But this is still a pretty basic setup, and it still feels really damn good. So aside from that, I tried to go a bit of a hybrid setup, so a bit of evasion and energy shield on a 5 movement speed base here. Some cast speed and mana regen on my rings is the name of the game. Each of these costs maybe 60 exalts or something like that. You get a lot of extra spell damage from Dodries at the cost of a little bit of cast speed. There's not much else we really can do for damage, so I figure it's worth doing Dodries. Then got a hat with just some life mana life mana res, all of that sort of stuff. The more mana you have, the harder it is to run out of, and the better the mana regen is going to be. Aside from that, Incinerate has Searing Flame, Mobility, Momentum, and Controlled Destruction. The last link in this case is quite potentially like Fire Mastery, just for +1. Maybe something else, I don't know. Flame Blast itself is currently rocking Conk Effect, Considered Casting, Fire Mastery, and Strip Away. Maybe consider casting there a bit instead. I don't know. Solar Orb has Arcane Tempo. I messed around with my Spirit Reserve a bunch. I tried to do Cast on Ignite, but typically it's just eating up too much mana. But the main purpose of my Elemental Invocation is just to chill the enemy, which is what I've got here for Comet, Embitter, and Cold Pen. Mostly just to chill the enemy so I can take a bit better advantage of this. And this thing here, and this thing here. If I could get like reliable shock on the enemy as well, I would, which you can get by having like a bunch of decks and then using a companion, but I went out of that route because I just didn't enjoy having a companion. It was kind of clumsy, that it would just die lots and kind of take the focus away from you when attacking, so it was just a bit weird. Anyway, this is what I'm currently using, so I just, build up Elemental Invocation, press it whenever I need to for extra chill by throwing down a Comet. Otherwise, we have Ghost Dance with Clarity, Cannibalism, and Mysticism for extra damage. Flammability, very low level at its base. Heightened Curse and Inspiration. And then, this is what I was using. I was using a Quadrilla that just had some Thunderstorm attached to it. So it would Thunderstorm enemies and do some Lightning. And would shock enemies. That's basically all I had it do, and it worked for a while, but then I just couldn't justify the dex costs, and it was just dying lots, so I felt like not doing it anymore. But I think there's some, definitely versatile stuff you can definitely do with Cast on Ignites and companions and stuff. And originally I was more of a companion-based build. Like I even had all these nodes over here, and I wanted to get a second one, and I wanted to have two of them do various things. And it's absolutely possible to do that sort of thing. I'm just not sure I could be fucked doing it, so I spec'd out of it. And instead, my passive tree is just revolving entirely around ailment damage, some movement speed, some little bit of defensiveness. Like you can spec into much more ES and then just have a much bigger defensive layer there if you really want, but this has been enough for me. I rarely get hit and just move around lots. And then we've got some area. Area does affect Incinerate, and then all these damage nodes over here as well. Area does affect Incinerate to make the beam longer. I'm not sure if it makes it much wider, but it does definitely help to make it longer so that when you're moving around and channeling, you are hitting things from further away, and it makes it much more comfortable. Likewise, with your Flame Blast, you'll then be able to make sure whenever you channeled up to max, you'll hit things a bit more reliably. And then, like I said, I got the Flame Blast jewel over here. This thing was 10 exalts. The Incinerate one is probably going to be about 50 divines, so if you want to go maximum on Incinerate, it's going to be expensive because people are playing it. Flame Blast no one gave a shit about, so that's why I got that. And even with this, even with like maximum Flame Blast, it's kind of only just barely competitive with Incinerate, so don't feel bad if you can't get that. You can just run around incinerating things and never worry about Flame Blasting. That's fine too. I just like the idea of doing some Flame Blasts, so I went ahead and tried to make that a bit of a thing as well. So that's the whole character. Pretty damn fun. Incinerate, I think, very versatile. It doesn't have to be a Pathfinder. It can be anything. And the main purpose of Pathfinder is that. But while doing that, it actually felt pretty damn good to get a few extra points over here. And then also unaffected by slows means that we can run chilled ground maps and temp chain maps and not give a shit. So that was a really nice side perk of running Pathfinder. Thoroughly enjoyed that, but you could also just, instead of getting extra points, be a lot thicker by taking this over here. Like I said, I felt like I was already thick enough, so that's why I didn't bother doing this. I rarely get hit and was rarely dying, but in theory, this sounds like it'll be pretty damn thick. Stack some evasion, get some early damage reduction, but these extra points just gave me a bit more damage and a bit more freedom to move around on the passive tree. So that's our character, Incinerate Pathfinder. Can highly recommend Incinerate in some capacity. Very fun skill to use. We'll see what happens next. I'm not sure there's going to be another PoE2 character for a bit because we might be jumping over to other things. But some good patches just then hit. So by all means, check it out for some loot or the strongbox buff and the fucking breach buff and stuff. All sounds pretty good. Yes, PoE 1's looking like it's going to come back soon. I trust it's going to be a very big league and everyone's going to feel like we're back and all this sort of stuff. That's my inclination. I think it's going to be kind of a big expansion-y type league thing and we're going to be pretty pleased. It's just a matter of patience and, you know, getting it when we get it and waiting for them to do both things at once, because it's a tough predicament they're in with the current PoE 2 stuff and the PoE 1 stuff. But I think we're going to get a big PoE 1 league coming sometime soon. So that's something to look forward to. With that, thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time.